Hello and welcome everybody to a brand new episode of r/ProRevenge. My name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top story. Before I do though, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button, as well as make sure you got notifications turned on, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. Today's video is one particularly long story by Hassad802. It's 8 months old and it's called Refuse to Pay $60 to Fix My Roof. Okay, I'll close your building site down and cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Names, places, and time frames have been changed as per rules. Characters in this story are my friend, who I'll call Brian, bullying demolition man, who we'll call Keith, and greedy property developer, who we'll call Karen. We've also got the insurance assessor. This tale of nuclear revenge happened a while back and is in a work in progress. It is too good not to tell, and I'll try and keep you updated down the track. Brian's neighbor is a typical greedy career landlord that left their rental house in disrepair. The poor tenant living in the cold house, raw sewerage leaking onto the lawn, and holes in the house that you could see light coming out of. After multiple requests from Brian, Karen refused to get any repairs done. When the state government introduced new laws about ensuring landlords are insulating their rental properties, instead of doing this to the house, Karen kicked their tenants out and left the house vacant for 5 years. The old house deteriorated so much during this time, with rats infesting the house and invading other houses nearby. Brian and his wife, with their limited funds, were able to get sufficient lending from the bank and offered to buy the house and do it up themselves to improve the neighborhood, or just rent it out as there's a massive shortage of rental properties in our local county. Greedy Karen did not want to sell, nor did she want to spend a cent on the house to remedy the rodent problem. She also didn't care about the effect the house was having on the aesthetics of the street. It's important to know that Karen and her wealthy family have over 100 rental properties, and due to tax laws in this region, they do not pay a cent and can get tax write-offs with their properties deteriorating and then claim them as a loss. Long story short, some of them appear to be leeches on our society and are one of the reasons that property prices are so high and rent prices are skyrocketing in our area. Her husband is also the chairman of the state's Landlord Association, an association that he often fronts the media for, defending landlords and putting a good media spin on them when there's negative press. Fast forward 5 years, and Brian finds out the house is going to be demolished to make way for new houses to go in the small section. That's good news at least, though Brian and his wife were anxious about how smoothly the demolition would go, to the fact that the houses are quite close to one another. This is important for later. Prior to demolition, the company doing it had to get samples from all sides of the house to check for asbestos. Either Karen made it difficult for the company to get down the side bordering Brian's house, or they were simply too lazy. But only samples from 3 sides, not 4, were taken. Demolition day came around and Brian was concerned that no safety barriers had been put up to protect his house from falling bricks, or the chimney, nor was there anything from stopping dust or debris going all over his new porch area. Later that day, Brian had the pleasure of meeting Keith. Keith is the demolition company manager that is well known around the district for only caring about money and has little regard for people or property. Keith was doing the demolition himself today, simply with a digger. Brian returned home during his break at work to check the progress of the demolition and found the demolition was already complete after only an hour or so. The demolished house was in a pile. He climbed up onto his roof and to his disbelief found hundreds of bricks had fallen onto his roof, causing damage, though he was lucky none had fallen through into the house. Brian phoned up demolition man Keith to ask what went wrong. Keith initially played down the damage despite there being 200 bricks laying on Brian's roof. Even with the damage done, no apology, and the rude attitude of Keith, Brian kept his cool. "Since I did a little bit of roofing when I was younger, I can fix up the roof if you just give me 4 new sheets of roofing iron and we'll call it even. Don't even worry about paying for paint. I can sort that out when I paint the whole roof after the fall." Brian's roof was not in the best of shape, but it was in much worse shape after having bricks dumped on it, leaving massive dents and chipping the paint. This is the moment that a simple decision on Keith's part would screw him and the landlord big time. "Not happening, pal. Your roof is fucked anyway. I can get you a sheet of second-hand roofing iron from my yard to repair the damage on the roof, and I can come hose off the dust on your deck and your dog kennel." Cue the nuclear revenge. The The revenge was not intentionally nuclear, but Brian had a dilemma that his roof was damaged and he needed it repaired. There was rain and snow forecasting later in the week, and he shouldn't be out of any pocket to have to buy new materials to fix his own roof up to a good standard. Brian is a normally calm and relaxed man, but this situation and the way he and his property were treated sparked an anger that I have never seen before. Brian got in contact with his insurance company, and due to the issue involving a roof, a building assessor arrived that day to assess the claim. The assessor would then be able to seek damages from the landlord or demolition company, if he found them to be at fault, that is. Brian also reported the demolition company to the local health and safety authorities due to their lack of safety precautions used when doing the demolition. The assessor got on the roof with Brian and was mortified to hear how Keith had acted in such disregard with the damage done to the roof and his lack of apology for any wrongdoings. That really got the assessor mad. He then looked more concerned and bent down and picked up some gray fibrous material. Luckily, thanks to COVID, we already have masks on, Brian. This here looks like asbestos. I don't know how they got to sign off on getting this house knocked down, and you don't know the time of being exposed to this stuff. But if you breathe in these fibers, it can cause serious diseases later on in life, including lung cancer. I'll get this sent off to the lab for testing, and we'll be in touch. Fast forward another day, and Brian was contacted by his insurance company. It turns out the side of the house that wasn't tested was clad in asbestos. Not just any bad asbestos, the worst possible type you can get. Super asbestos. Insurance will be seeking damages to replace Brian's whole roof, not just the damaged part. The cost of replacement is likely to be around $20,000, and that's the cheap part. The demolition site has been shut down by local authorities, and there needs to be a massive decontamination of the area. This involves having to remove at least half a meter of topsoil on surrounding properties, test the soil, and remove more if there's asbestos still found. Areas with decks need to potentially have these removed so soil can be evacuated out underneath. The cost of this cleanup will likely be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but who will pay for this is unknown at this stage. Whether it's Keith or Karen's insurance or them personally, only time will tell. In regards to Brian, his family, and their dog potentially being exposed to the asbestos, that's another battle for them to fight, and I will keep you updated. Update 1. I have been on the phone with Brian for a half an hour. His workplace was very sympathetic and paid for him to have 2 days off to try and sort things out. This is in complete contrast to Karen and Keith, who have yet to apologize and have made life difficult for Brian and his family. Due to the neighboring property being closed off for entry due to the health and safety investigation going on, it means Brian can't even get scaffolding on his roof yet to fix the roof. Brian is worried that the landlord is going to try and make his life hell. She's also a lawyer, apparently. Karen was the person that offered the old roofing iron, apparently, not Keith. She spoke to her husband, who said that because bricks dented the roof, it means it must have been rusty, and it doesn't need new iron put on. Keith did, however, go nuts at Brian for getting insurance involved, and also the Health and Safety Investigation Unit, who's currently doing the investigation, in regards to Brian and family still living in the house. According to the investigator, the risk is negligible, and the problems will arise when the debris are removed from the section. This will require a large tent, etc. However, the wind has been strong the last few days, and I feel it is still high risk living next to an uncovered, broken asbestos cladding that's not being kept damp. Brian asked the investigation office person by phone about what to do when his dog needed the vet checkup, etc. They were 1 meter away from the fence, which is about a foot from the asbestos. They responded, saying, "Do you think your dog will live more than 20 years? If not, I probably wouldn't worry." Brian is also thinking the landlord is probably scheming revenge of her own. Brian paid for a new fence himself a few years back to board in Karen's rental, as when he moved in, the old fence was half falling down. She refused to pay for half despite this being law. He reckons because the fence is approximately 10 centimeters too high, she will ask him to cut the height down at his own cost so it is in perfect position for her new houses that are to be built. Brian's plan is that he will put the nice expensive fence down entirely and put 600mm high chicken wire mesh up, as that is all that's required by law and there's nothing she can do about it legally as he paid for and built the fence. I'll continue to keep you all updated. Also, as I know the local newspaper editor, I have offered to go with Brian to discuss the story with them once the investigation's completed. If Karen tries to make life difficult, I'll also expose Keith for his dirty practices. Keith's company has just been awarded a multi-million-dollar contract for demolition of an old car factory, and this would raise some eyebrows. Update 2. Very small, but not great news. I feel this story, as many have suggested, will not conclude in a warm, fuzzy feeling of ultimate revenge as things progress. Firstly, Brian informed me a fence has gone up around the exposed parts of the neighboring property. This is only to stop people from public going over the debris piles and scavenging them, exposing themselves to broken asbestos cladding. Brian also needed to take 2 full days off work when this happened to try and sort out the situation and reduce stress on his wife, talking with all parties involved. So he was down 2 days' wages coming up to Christmas, and his boss has paid them special leave for taking them off. The insurance company, after further clarification, will only be paying out for 1/4 of the roof and flashings. Brian will have to find funds to pay for the rest. This section of roof is, however, the most expensive, as it encompasses a large complex, parpre, gutter, roofing, iron, and flashings. I know I mispronounced that P word. Cost? $8,000 USD, 120K ZAR. I hope I can provide something more substantial in a later update when there's been more action. And there has. As of the 9th of January 2021. Wish this update was actually something to update you on, but alas, it's merely to say due to the Christmas break, nothing has progressed. Brian can't get his roof fixed until the area besides his house is decontaminated so the scaffolding can go up. Update 4. Another downer of an update. Brian is being paid $8K towards his roof. The landlord/contractor got away with not needing a huge area cleanup and convinced local authorities that the building site would be sufficient for decontamination, as the testers could not find samples over the fences of surrounding houses. All topsoil on old sections was removed and replaced. A new house has been quickly built by landlord's builder. The house looks as cheap as they come. A kinset house and looks out of place. Sort of like a house you could load onto a truck and move if it needed furniture. Brian still hasn't had his roof fixed yet and needs to save money to afford to pay for the whole roof. Update 5. Brian tells me the demolition company are taking his insurance company to court on the amount they have to pay for the roof. And as of right now, that is all the updates that are provided on the post. Perhaps if you guys really like this one and you want me to revisit it when they finally do update it, that's a video we could do in the future. Until then though, I hope you enjoyed today's top story. If you did, be sure to leave a like on the video, as well as make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you could stay up to date with all future videos. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.